no, they won the game. They also got better. Their younger players got better. They got more sound. They built a more solid foundation for their own individual performances, for their performances as a collective within their positional groups, and for the team. And they came out with the W. It really can all coexist. Good morning to you. Good Monday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Steelers. It comes your way bright and early every weekday if you're into hockey and or baseball. I also offer daily shots of Penguins and Pirates that I hope you'll check out. Steelers 20, Saints 10, and it wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be perfect. It didn't even need to be a win. The standings don't really matter all that much. They do and they don't. No one wants to stink. No one wants to be in last place. And please, please, please leave out any nonsense about the draft next May. This team is not going to be a high picker in that draft. You saw the impact TJ Watt brings to that field. If you were in the stadium, you felt the impact that he brings to the fan base as a whole that's in there, that's energizing the team. This team will not stink in the second half. It just won't. I've been saying that for a while now. So get the draft thing out of your heads, collectively, friendly advice, and focus in turn on what it is that's either making the Steelers better or not. Ask me, there was a lot to like in that specific regard about this game. Did you like Kenny Pickett getting his first NFL win as a starter? Okay, if it didn't excite you, the statistical showing, and it probably shouldn't have. Did it excite you that he threw the ball away a half dozen times? Maybe, I'm guessing not. But I'll tell you this, everyone associated with the Steelers with whom I spoke after this game, including one high-ranking executive, pointed to that first and foremost as a sign of his maturity, as a sign of his setting himself up long range to be a reliable starting quarterback in the NFL, as well as being a dynamic one. The first thing has to happen first. We have seen that historically, not just across the NFL, but even right here within the Steelers. For those of you who go way, way back, Terry Bradshaw threw 5 billion interceptions when he got started. It wasn't until he hit a hard reset button at the threat of losing his job to either Terry Hanratty or Joe Gilliam that he was able to set his own stage, a solid cement-based stage from which to operate and ultimately to lead this franchise to 4 Super Bowls. Ben Roethlisberger's trajectory really wasn't any different. You'll find it around the NFL. What Kenny did yesterday was to grow up a little bit. Listen to Kenny after the game.
No, little, that's what you're battling. You're a competitor. You want to make a play, but at the same time, it's got to be smart. So you're always balancing, and you're always, fighting that urge to make a play. Felt like I did a good job today, taking what they gave me. Glad I hit the shot to Deontay, but there was more out there that we need to make. So that's something that we're going to continue to work on.
That's good stuff from him. It is. I'm not sitting here making excuses for the guy or saying, really? That's all you're probably, some of you are listening to this going, that's all you got? You're just going to pump up Kenny for throwing the ball away? No, there was a lot more to it. But this was the area of focus from the head coach on down as it related to Kenny's performance. And he wasn't alone. What can you expect at Point Park University in downtown Pittsburgh? Respect, rigor, relevance. That's the Point Park Pledge. You'll be treated with respect while being challenged and supported academically to graduate with career-ready, relevant skills. Visit pointpark.edu to learn more. How about Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren combining for 200-plus yards on the ground? Go ahead, be cynical, point out that the New Orleans defense hasn't been very good, including, notably actually, against the run. But the Steelers hadn't been running the ball against anyone for the longest time. So these were, in fact, breakthroughs, not just for those two players, but also for the guys on the O-line. both Mason Cole and Kevin Dotson told me afterward that they felt this was the most complete performance that they'd had as a unit, not just with the running game, but also with pass protection. Now, you and I can single out the 6 times that Kenny was brought down. I thought a lot of those were coverage sacks, to be honest. But there were mistakes up front. The one that jumps out, obviously, I think, is the one where Dan Moore and Kevin Dotson both got crossed up by a really smart rush/pick play by the New Orleans defense. But overall, they were better. They really were. And there's something to be said for that. George Pickens was targeted like all the time, including, gasp, across the middle of the field. I couldn't believe my eyes on either front. But there it was. No one had to anoint him. No one had to say, Pickens is our new number 1 wide receiver. You're not going to get anything like that out of the head coach or out of anybody else, least of all Pickett. But what you saw was what counted. They threw to Pickens in a variety of circumstances. I didn't expect that. I really didn't. You heard me advocate for it for weeks. I still didn't see that it would come along. Maybe not even in our lifetimes, but it did. They threw more to Pat Freiermuth. They did get Deontay Johnson involved, and when Deontay thought it was a good idea to go forward after the catch, he was effective as well. I'm not going to get as much into the defense because this one I felt really was impacted by what New Orleans had going on, particularly missing 3 offensive linemen up front, but they got the job done too, including some of the younger guys, and highlighted by some amazing plays in the secondary, the interceptions by Levi Wallace and DeMonte Casey, and the great pass breakup deep downfield by Arthur Millette. Plays were made. People got better. The team overall got better. And none of it required doing some sort of, official or semi-official rebuilding thing. None of this has to be a declaration. You just have to go out week after week after week and get better. And that is so much more valuable than any other benefit that comes from losing or sliding up a couple or even a handful of spots in the draft. When we come back, J1Q. It's time for Just One Question, and that's brought to you always on this program by the personal injury law firm of Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly, and George, LGKG. They represent people who are hurt in car accidents, who need assistance with workers' comp and medical malpractice claims. The attorneys at LGKG have been designated super lawyers, capital S, capital L, for the past 15 years. And yes, that is a real thing. The super lawyer designation is reserved for the top 5% of all attorneys in Pennsylvania. Learn more about them at lgkg.com or by calling 888-842-5454. And today's J1Q comes from Brent, who says, "Hey, DK, can you please comment on how TJ did or did not change how the defense performed around him? I feel like this game should have been a shutout." You know what, Brent? I'm not ready to take away that much credit from Andy Dalton, and I'm not generally one to give credit to Dalton, and I haven't been for years, going back to his Cincinnati days. There has long been a sense on South Water Street, including from players who are long gone, that this is a quarterback that the Steelers solved a long time ago. They know how to get to him. They know how to rattle him. They know how to beat him, plain and simple. And yet, I thought Dalton made some very good passes that had negative outcomes for New Orleans. I'm not sure I was expecting that, but I ran this past 2 members of the secondary, Arthur Maulet and Terrell Edmonds, and they both agreed with me. They felt that Dalton was throwing bullets, was the term that Maulet used. The Steelers made plays. The secondary made plays. The defensive front, meaning the interior, first and foremost, made plays. Now, does TJ make a difference? Yes, of course he does. Of course he does. And does he make a difference for the rest of the team? Yes, of course he does. And you know that. You know that. I think maybe you're looking for a little bit of a shout out there for TJ as well as a shutout for the defense. TJ just gets those. He earns them. Right off the bat, we saw him get a couple of tackle assists. We saw him get into the backfield. We saw him make Dalton move, in particularly moving to his left where he's not very comfortable, as most right-handed quarterbacks are not, and that forced Andy to do things that he didn't want to do. TJ is all that. He wasn't 100%. You could see that, and I don't even necessarily mean that from the health standpoint. I thought that TJ wasn't getting the usual push and the usual dynamism that he does, but I'd say that would have a lot more to do with rust than anything else. But I'm not going to lie, the part that I liked the best about the way the defense performed was that it was a lot of guys, and a lot of guys in particular who had to step up. Let's remember that Minkah Fitzpatrick was lost the day before to the appendicitis. Miles Jack dressed but never took a single defensive snap. He made himself available, to his credit, but Mike Tomlin chose and explained afterward on purpose that he just didn't want to take a gamble. He appreciated that Jack had allowed himself to be available to suit up, but not putting him out there. And then seeing, Robert Spillane with a big TFL on the 4th and 1 underneath Cam Hayward, Larry Ogunjobi, and Alex Highsmith knifing in there from the side to make sure that Dalton couldn't get the sneak. Right before that 3rd and 1, Alvin Kamara, same result. Terrell Edmonds was one of the people that got into the backfield, made sure that Kamara didn't convert. There was just a lot to like about the defensive performance. I already mentioned the interceptions and the pass breakup by Maulet. Do you want to credit that partially or whatever to TJ? Go right ahead. To me, there's not enough credit that can be given to someone of his impact. I believe he's the best defensive player on the planet, with no apologies whatsoever to Aaron Donald. I believe TJ has overtaken him when everyone's healthy. But there was a lot there. There really was. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everyone listening to Daily Shot of Steelers. We'll do another one of these tomorrow.